Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Congratulations on making it this far. This shows you're really determined to crush the CELPIP test. But we still have a long way to go. We'll be covering all sections of the response together in an easy step-by-step way, and we'll be looking at some nice language boosters along the way as well. Remember, you can access the complete masterclass by becoming a member of this channel. As a member, you will have exclusive access to complete tutorials, walkthroughs, and sample tests. Becoming a member is easy. All you have to do is click on the join button on the channel homepage, right next to the subscribe button. Just make sure you're logged in to your Google account when joining the membership program. Good luck. Hey guys, and welcome back to my CELPIP survey writing masterclass. Last session, we learned how to draw an outline for our response, which means at this point, you know exactly how many paragraphs you'll be writing and what will form the main idea of each of your paragraphs. This session, we're going to learn how to write the introduction paragraph. A quick note before I begin. Guys, keep in mind that this is a tutorial series, so a lot of what I teach you here is based on what I've previously explained in another video. I personally think it's best if you work your way through the course from the first lesson onward, but if you're here just to learn about writing introductions, that's all good. I'll still try to make it easy and understandable for you. Okay, so I'm gonna teach you a very simple template which you can use for almost all introductions. With this template, you're going to save yourself a great deal of time and effort. A lot of students complain about how hard it is, especially to write that first sentence, to get the engine running, so to speak. The template's designed to check all of the boxes, and it includes all the essential elements of a good introduction. It's also adaptable, meaning you can make it look different every time if you wanted to. And so not all samples will be the same. But if you have to practice using it, I suggest you focus on one particular instance and use it across all your samples, because at the end of the day, you'll only be writing one example on the test. I always ask my students to write at least 5 samples before they take the real test. That's a bare minimum, so you should write much more than that. You shouldn't be worried about recalling the templates on your test day if you've practiced them enough. Okay, so I mentioned the boxes we'll be checking, right? Let's review what those standards are. So the question is, what should a good introduction paragraph do? There are 5 things that a good introduction paragraph should do. 1, it should introduce the topic. Sort of give an idea of what the overall topic is. Like, is it about food? Is it about school subjects? What themes are being explored? Number 2, it should introduce the 2 options. Your reader needs to know what the 2 options are before they read about your choice and your justification for it. You can't just state your choice without first presenting what the alternative was. Number 3, state your own opinion. The whole point of the survey is for you to give your opinion, and you should do it right at the very beginning. Some people keep it for the conclusion, but to me, that's a risky move, because your reader might get lost in your body paragraphs if they have no clue which option you're eventually going to go with. But if you tell them in the introduction, they'll read the rest of the essay knowing full well that you are saying all of this to support your choice. In that way, your writing will be understood more easily. So go ahead and announce your choice here. Number 4, state the purpose of the essay. Okay, we've given our opinion, right? Is there anything else left to say in the introduction? Well, one extra thing you can do is you can say why you've decided to write the essay. Something like, I'm going to explain the reasons for my decision, or something like that. This is just to assure the examiner that the function of the text you've produced matches the aim of the task. And for those of you who might need it, it's an extra few words. Now, there's also an optional thing you can do in the introduction, and that's previewing the main ideas. It's like announcing in advance what your reasons are going to be, what the main ideas of each of the body paragraphs are going to be. Now, while it's certainly possible to do so, I do not recommend this. I don't recommend it because it sometimes makes the introduction way too long, even longer than the body paragraphs, and that just messes up the proportions and everything. And it's only 150 to 200 words long, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to preview, state, and then review the ideas. So I personally opt out of this one, and I suggest my students do the same. Okay, so let's get to the templates. A few things to remember, guys. For each of the aims I mentioned, I'm going to give you a number of structures. You can choose which one you use, but only use one of them, okay? I'll give you some examples for the structures as well. So, aim number 1, introducing the topic. For this aim, you're going to repeat the scenario part of the question. If you remember, in the introduction video, I told you about the two parts of the question, the scenario on the left and the options on the right. So you're taking that scenario or parts of it and you're using it to open up your introduction. Remember, the scenario is very often about a change that they're going to make, or something new that's introduced. Keep in mind as we review the structure. For example, you can say, it was recently brought to my attention that. It was recently brought to my attention that the company is considering offering prepackaged lunches. You see, that's how you can introduce the decision that's been made or what's been discussed prior to this survey. You can also say, I was recently informed that. I was recently informed that the company plans to make some changes to its lunch program. You can also say, I recently found out that going to happen at the company. Now, you can follow these structures with something like, someone is considering something. For example, you might say, I was recently informed that management is considering prepackaged lunches. Or, I recently found out that the school is considering a change to the students' curriculum. As you can see, in both cases, I've used a noun phrase to stand in for something. Prepackaged lunches and changes to the school curriculum. Okay, now that we've introduced the topic of the survey, we now have to review the two choices. To do this, you can use one of the following structures. The structure is simple. You basically say, while some argue that choice B, I personally feel that choice A. So, with this structure, you're introducing the choice you want to reject in the first blank, and you present your own opinion in the second blank. For instance, you could say something like, while some argue that schools should mainly focus on teaching subjects that are useful for finding a job, I personally feel that traditional subjects must be kept in the curriculum. Now, you can make some changes to the template. For instance, you could use whereas and although instead of while. For example, you could say, although some argue that, or whereas some argue that. You can also substitute the verb and use words like claim, argue, or point out. For instance, you could say, while some argue that, or while some point out that. Okay, so we've introduced the topic, reviewed the two sides, and given our own opinion. Now what? Well, it's now time to state the reason for writing the essay. For this, you can use one of the following forms. You could say, I will explain my reasons in the following paragraphs. Alternatively, you could say something like, I will proceed to justify my choice in the following. So, let's write a sample introduction paragraph using this new template for each of the two topics we've been looking at so far. So, for the first topic, we want to start by introducing the topic itself. We could start with the sentence we came up with before. I was recently informed that management is considering prepackaged lunches. Okay, so now we must add a sentence representing the two sides. So something like, while some argue that prepackaged lunches are a great idea, I personally feel that. Okay, so now we have a problem. Is it okay to say, I personally feel that they are not a good idea? Well, that sounds a bit redundant and repetitive. So let me show you a trick to overcome this problem. Here's what you can say instead. You can say, while some argue that prepackaged lunches are a great idea, I personally disagree and will explain my reasons in the following paragraphs. Notice that I killed two birds with one stone there. I introduced my own opinion and I stated the purpose of the essay in one sentence. But remember, you should only do this for apples and apples questions where the two options are mirror opposites. This technique is only to avoid repetition, and you shouldn't really use it for all survey task types. If you're still not entirely clear on the difference between apples and oranges type questions, go back and watch the first lesson of this masterclass in which I explain the task format and features. Okay, now let's write a sample introduction for the next topic here. So, for this one, let's begin with the same sentence we came up with earlier. I recently found out that the school is considering a change to the students' curriculum. Okay, now we're going to review both sides. Notice how I'm paraphrasing the choices and putting them in my own words. Nothing too fancy, just trying to keep it simple and error-free. So I'm going to say, while some argue that schools should mainly focus on teaching subjects that are useful for finding a good job, I personally feel that traditional subjects must be kept in the curriculum. Okay, so now I can finally add that last sentence that wraps up the introduction by stating the purpose of the essay. I will proceed to justify my choice in the following. But remember, this last sentence is not mandatory. It's optional, and you could leave it out, especially if you feel your introduction is turning out to be too long. So as you can see, in a simple, structured way, I've managed to write a paragraph that achieves everything readers expect to see in a good introduction. This will save me a lot of time spent wondering what to write this time and how to start my essay for this particular topic. Practice using the template for different topics and continue until you know the structure by heart. That's it, guys. I hope you found this lesson useful. If you liked this tutorial, you can access the complete masterclass, which covers all lessons, by becoming a member of the channel. You need to do this very easily by clicking on the join button on the channel homepage. Now, here's a task for you all to complete. I want you to write an introduction based on the topic provided in the video description and leave your response in the comments section. Thanks for watching, and see you all in the next lesson.